And joining me now to talk more about these markets from Las Vegas is Jimmy Lee. He's the CEO of the Wealth Consulting Group. Jimmy, it's great to have you on the show. And look, what better way? There's no better way, in fact, to end this show than talking about where we stand. It looks like the S&P 500 up more than 1%. What do you make of this market?
Good morning, Kristen. Thanks for having me on. Investors are very uncertain about what's going to happen here in the short term. And for us long-term investors in equities, the volatility is just part of the package of potentially getting the double-digit returns that equities have produced over the long term. And so I just think investors need to realize that about every year and a half or so, we're going to get, a correction, and in about every 4 or 5 years, you're going to get double that, which we may be somewhere in the middle of that right now. So that's just a part of the package. And I think that a lot of investors panic out during times like this. And I would just caution investors to not let that happen this time around. This could be another COVID moment, which, if you look back, was a great time to invest.
Yeah, so let's talk more about that because there's a lot to digest, right? Obviously, the tariff policy, weakening consumer sentiment, inflation, but also what's happening in the bond market. Jimmy, what do you make of some of the action, especially last week in the bond market, that according to reports, the White House was indeed watching when it came to the tariff policy reversal?
Certainly, I think the yields going up on the 10-year surprised the White House to an extent, and that was definitely a part of, I think, the decision making on pausing the tariffs, which I think was a good decision. And so, I think I've been talking to a lot of folks in the industry about the credit markets and what may have happened. I think there may have been a combination of different things. Foreign sellers, maybe I heard a rumor about a hedge fund blowing up on a trade in Japan, possibly. But who knows what exactly it is? But I think as far as like the dollar, for example, going down, you've got multinational U.S. companies, I think, that are going to benefit from that. I still believe that at the end of this year, we could have a nice year. We could have a return to where we were before. And remember, I would caution investors to understand that we're playing politics here, and the White House has created this disruption. Towards the end of this year, they're definitely going to want to have momentum going into midterms. So I would pay attention to that, and also that the consumer is still relatively strong, even though that we've seen signs of weakening. We want the American consumer to continue to spend, and I think that the White House is watching that very closely.
Jimmy, where do you see opportunity in this market right now?
We still like a no recession, believe it or not, scenario, which is I know now not in the consensus, which we like. And the sentiment being off, we also like, as an investor, putting cash to work. So we like industrials, we like financials. I even think small cap stocks here in the U.S. will come back strongly, and I do like international stocks as well. And I think in the long run, bond yields will go down. So I think bond investors will get a reprieve by the end of the year.
Interesting. Jimmy Lee, I'm looking up here at the stock market, and we do see the S&P 500 up about 1.3%. We had some confusion over the weekend based on the Trump administration, perhaps indicating that more tariffs might be back on the horizon. How should viewers navigate that?
Well, I don't think anyone could accurately predict every single time what's going to happen in the economy, or to try to time the markets, I think, is futile. So I don't think normal investors, should be thinking about that. Leave that up to the traders. For investors that are looking for wealth accumulation, there's never been a time ever in history where it would have been worse off for you to invest during a correction or a bear market. I think if you're a retiree, hopefully you're not having to sell any of your equities while they're down. You should have a cash cushion. And so I think investors should look at their portfolios inside of their financial plans and make sure that it makes sense. And you should have an action plan for times like this, because they're going to occur.
Jimmy Lee, CEO of the Wealth Consulting Group, joining us from Las Vegas. Jimmy, thank you so much.
Thank you.